Now, without further ado, I'd like to turn the presentation over to your first speaker for today, Ashley Dees, Digital Marketing Manager. You now have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to respond when the big three make changes. Again, my name is Ashley Dees, and I'm the Digital Marketing Manager here at Blue Hornet. I'm joined by Kara Trivanovich. Did I slaughter that, Kara?
You totally did, but it's okay.
All right. And we're going to be talking about the changes that have been happening in Gmail and Yahoo and Hotmail over the past few months. As an email marketer myself, I kind of want to know what are best practices, how are they going to affect us in the long run. So Kara's going to be speaking about that. A few housekeeping items. Again, if you want to ask questions, you can type them into the Q&A box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. The webinar will run about 30 minutes. We'll have a live Q&A, about 2 or 3 questions after that. And then we'll jump onto Twitter and do a Twitter chat, which we call email chat, and we'll go into those details after the webinar. Also, be sure to use the hashtag BHBig3 if you want to tweet about anything that Kara's speaking about. And with that, we will jump right into the presentation. Kara, you have the floor.
Great, thanks, Ashley. So my name is Kara Trivunovich, but Ashley did a bang-up job trying to knock it out. I'm the VP of Strategic Services here at Blue Hornet. Just to give you a quick background on me, I've been in the email space for about 14 years. Done a little bit of everything, from creative to deliverability to production and down the road. So I've stuck with strategy. It's been kind of my focus for the better part of the last 12 years. So with that, really do bring a bit of a view of what's been happening over the course of the years. At Blue Hornet, my goal and focus is to really truly work with our clients to get the most out of their email programs that they can possibly get. So just that's a quick introduction on me. As we jump into this today, the reality is that inbox experiences really do continue to evolve and change for consumers all of the time. And when these things happen, it's important for us as marketers to take a deep breath, pause for a second, and truly understand what these changes are going to mean to their overall program. So today we're going to look at the changes that are happening with some of the most common inbox providers, and of course those that have changes coming. So we're going to be looking at Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, Outlook, and we're going to take a little bit of a look at the changes that are happening, what you can do to address it, and then finally the things that you need to think about moving forward as marketers and the things that you need to think about as it relates to your program. So let's just go ahead and get started because I know we've got a quick 30 minutes. So, again, if you look back over the course of the years, inbox providers really have dictated the experience that we can deliver to our customers or to our subscribers. It's their environment in which we send email into, and they have always let us know that they're in control of those situations and those scenarios. It started early on with the types of content that we can deliver, text, HTML, our inability to deliver JavaScript, right? The reason, that we can't get mass video in email. Then it became about placement, whether they were going to put our email in front of the customer or not. Is it delivered? Is it not delivered? Is it bulk foldered? And then, as that continued, they started to, focus more on the engagement requirements. So, when are people opening the email frequently? Are they not? And really started using that as, the measure, the standard of measurement for whether or not they were going to place our emails into the inbox, which, once upon a time was content related, and now in this environment it's engagement related. And as email marketers, our goal really should be to message to customers in a relevant way that keeps them engaged. And, in the example of the engagement requirements now, it's the inbox providers forcing our hands to make sure that we are keeping an active look on, what is happening there. And these changes that are coming are no different. These are, new paradigm shifts that are happening across Gmail, Yahoo, and Outlookcom. And all of these things are going to affect, all of the people on this call and, everybody else in different ways. So, what I wanted to do was really make sure we had the opportunity to dive into, what these changes are and looking at really trying to devise the right response. Gmail, the change with Gmail is probably the most publicized of all of these shifts, and it's the most talked about amongst email experts. But if you've been under a rock for the last few weeks or are unfamiliar with the changes that are happening, Gmail has adopted this new tabbing approach, and they've introduced this ability for consumers to establish tabs, primary, social. They've got updates and forums, and you can start looking at how it is that as a consumer you want to organize your email. But consumers do have the ability to select, within their settings, which tabs they want to display and leverage, and they have the ability to deselect all of the tabs, which really does allow them to set up their inbox, in a way that it was previously displayed in line. So again, much like with every other change that Gmail has made to its interface, there is always the ability to kind of revert back to the way it was before. So, what's been happening right now is, a lot of emails, now promotions, it's my understanding that, anything that has an unsubscribe link in it is automatically being put into the promotions tab. And so, most email marketers have been affected by this, and it is where their emails are going by default. And this is the piece that has raised a lot of concern for marketers. But just because your email, might be appearing in the promotions tab, it doesn't mean the sky is falling. It's not the end of the world. It actually could be a very good thing, and it's just so early on right now. It's really hard to tell what the effects of this tabular change is going to mean. The idea of inbox organization isn't brand new. The idea of the tabs within Gmail are, but something like Other Inbox has been around for a while that has provided consumers with the ability to organize their email in a way that is more digestible for them. But if you're looking at your subscriber base, you have to first understand how much of your audience is affected by this. So I've seen a number of kind of representations of what the average Gmail contribution is to the inbox. I've seen 10 to 20 to 30%. I've seen some as high as 41%. That of a subscriber base is Gmail related. Some brands skew a little higher, some skew lower, but in order to really determine how concerned you need to be about this change, the first step is really looking at the size of your Gmail universe and truly quantify it. So if that's not something that you have done already, it's definitely something that you should do. But once you've isolated or identified that Gmail audience, it's time for you to kind of dig into the weeds and really start looking at the performance metrics. So you need to, it's really important to understand how your Gmail environment was performing before the change happened. So this change started rolling out, towards the end of June. It was happening slowly. It wasn't happening for everyone. And, so from about the end of June, though, was when we started seeing the tabs, make an appearance. And so if you could, truly take a look at your Gmail subscribers and how your engagement metrics were performing before this June 29 date, it'll provide you with a baseline to say, okay, our opens, our clicks, our conversions, if you're tracking it, this is what it looks like for our Gmail subscriber base before the change. And then, look at performance from, that 6/29 date forward, to current date, and start tracking that type of performance regularly. Look at, do you see any kind of impact on your open rates? Are you seeing any kind of impact on your click-through rates, specifically with your Gmail audience? If you're seeing some trending, downwards, that open rates are declining, then, it might be time for you to start looking at what you can do to affect this or change it. A lot of brands right now aren't seeing a whole lot of impact, at least from the ones that I've been talking to, aren't seeing a whole lot of impact on open rates right now. The reality is that it could be because it's still very new. Consumers could, be a little, concerned with the tabs. I mean, and, I've talked to a number of, friends and family outside of the industry who, they click on the promotions tab out of curiosity to make sure that nothing else is going in there. And there could be a little bit of that going on. So there's a newness to it that I think we're still at a point where it's still too new for us to really know whether it's something to panic about or not. So, looking at your performance, looking at your engagement metrics is critical to understanding whether or not this is really affecting your business or not. The other thing that I think is a good metric to look at is the time between delivery and open. So theoretically, I mean, if you look at the reason why consumers receive email, an overwhelming amount of them subscribe to receive email from marketers. I think 95% thereabouts have reported that they actually subscribe to receive email because they want promotions and offers from the brands. That's why they subscribe. So, the reality is that these consumers could likely be going to the promotions tab because that's what they're looking for. And that makes it a qualified step. It's a qualified opportunity in that they've clicked on the promotions tab because they actually do want to see promotions and offers. And so it could be, that it is very beneficial in the long run that that consumers or that your email is appearing on the promotions tab because that's the state of mind the consumer is in when they're hitting that tab. But you can't know that yet, quite frankly, and we can't really, until we start doing some tracking and trending, over the course of the next couple of months, it's going to be really difficult for, marketers to understand what the impact is going to be. But, in the meantime, it's also important to remember that, there are a number of ways to access inboxes today, and that's true of Gmail and then any other inbox that you could want to access. You can get into it via the desktop, a native mobile email solution on your iPhone, apps, mobile sites. So that tabular experience could be very different from one device or access point to the next. So, it's important that you are actually experiencing as many of these options as possible for yourself. It really is the single best way to truly understand what that impact could be for your recipients. So, as an example, in the BlackBerry that I carry, it doesn't, the native email client doesn't support Gmail tabs. So, on that device, whenever I'm looking at my Gmail email, it all appears in line and everything is there. It's only when I go to my desktop client and I log into, my inbox there that I see the tabs. So, understand that people probably are jumping between experiences and not all devices and not all apps are currently supporting that tabular view. So there could still be some confusion amongst consumers on that piece of it alone. I knock on my husband a lot when I write articles and things like that as a joke, but really, he was looking at his email on his phone the other day, and he saw something in there that he wanted to spend a little more time with, and when he went to the desktop in his Gmail account, he was having a really hard time finding it, and then he had to search through all of his tabs to figure out which one it was on, and so for him as a consumer, it was frustrating, and he, at that point in time, chose to turn the tabs off because he didn't feel it was helpful for him. So, there is this reality and a paradigm shift that's not just happening for marketers right now. It's also happening with the consumers, and so we need to keep that in mind, that they are going through a change in how they're engaging with email right now as well. So, if you've gone through, this process and you've gone through some of these exercises already and starting to try and understand the impacts that, these tabs are having on your email performance, like I said, what we're seeing right now is that the fluctuations seem to be nominal. There's nothing that's causing a great amount of concern. But, that isn't necessarily true of every organization. There are some brands that I spoke to that were outside of the commerce, outside of like retail, online retail, and e-commerce that, were being categorized in the promotions tab when really they weren't promotions. So if you think of, industries like the job industry, the job search industry, and career industry, or if you think about certain publications, magazine, emails, things like that, those are appearing in the promotions tab as well because they likely have an unsubscribe in their email communications, and really they aren't promotional. So those types of organizations are really looking at ways that they can, get out of that promotional tab because technically it's not really the proper, filing system for the type of email that they're sending. And so there are certain industries that are more concerned than others. All right, so, there are a number of ways that we can address the changes, and, a number of brands have really kind of started working pretty hard to get themselves placed into the primary tab. Common tactics like, asking the recipient to star your email or to drag it over to the primary tab. We're starting to see a number of brands send emails that are, asking you to move them, asking the consumer to move those emails into a different category. It is important to remember, if you are going to provide the instruction to star your email, that you also need to let the consumer know that they need to make sure that the setting here that says include starred in primary is checked so that they do in fact appear in the primary. There is the notice when you do drag a communication over that, the conversation has been moved to primary, and you have to say that yes, it does apply to all future emails from this email address. So it really is kind of a two-step process. So if you are going to provide instructions to the consumer on how to do that, you should make sure that those instructions are complete and succinct so that they understand all of the steps they need to take to do that. So like I said, a number of brands are really starting to provide this instruction, there are some things to keep in mind in doing this. So, the chances are a lot of brands are talking to the same consumer, and they are being told multiple times by multiple brands about how to move emails from the promotions tab into the primary tab. It can eventually get frustrating for a consumer. I mean, the idea of consistently telling them how to do the same thing over and over again, regardless if it's for a different brand or not, they learn it one time, they know how to do it, and if they choose to do it, they will. It doesn't necessarily have to be a standalone message if you want to, include it in header information for your Gmail subscribers, or if you want to provide it as instruction, the next couple messages you send. You can do that, but there's going to be a point in time where consumers will tire of this type of messaging, and it will become ineffective. So just, keep in mind that, at the end of all of this, relevance is still what we're trying to achieve here, and being relevant to your consumers and your recipients is what's going to get them engaged with your email. So pros and cons, right? There are a number of pros and cons associated with this whole Gmail change. And then, we're going to take a few minutes to look at what's going on with Yahoo and Outlook.com. But, the main takeaway about all of this with Gmail is that it isn't all bad. I mean, if you really do think about it, a subscriber who clicks on the promotion tab in their inbox really is seeking out promotions. They're already in a buying or saving kind of mindset. And, given that, like I said early on, that discounts and coupons are the number one reason subscribers, choose to be part of a brand's email program, chances are they're going to click on the tab, right? There's notifications that pop up, right? It'll say you have 5 new promotions, right? You have 5 new messages in here in this tab. So, something that kind of draws their attention to that. The con to this, of course, is that you're going to appear on that tab, which isn't the primary tab. It's not the first thing they look at when they log into their email, or it's not the first thing that's rendered. But you're also going to be, being served up in very close proximity to every other offer, deal, and discount that they're receiving. And that means that even people who aren't your competitors become your competitors in those environments because it's competitive for the eyes of the consumer and their click activity and their engagement activity. So, again, this goes back to you have to make sure that you're delivering relevant content. Your consumers are looking for it. The recipients are expecting expecting email from you and they're looking to get it. And the reality is that, for right now, the best thing to do is to start monitoring your performance in this domain if you haven't already, and start adjusting accordingly. So don't just don't worry, don't freak out, don't start running for the hills to kind of be woe is me, we're in the promotions tab, because really it could be a good thing. And so I think we all have to take a bit of a step back to wait to see what this really means. And who knows? I mean, with Gmail, you never know what they're going to do with their inbox experience. It could change tomorrow. So it's one of those things that we always have to maintain our agility and our ability to respond accordingly to the changes they make to the environments in which we deliver our emails. All right, so we'll take a quick look at what's happening with Yahoo. So the changes at Yahoo haven't been nearly as publicized, or at least not as heavily talked about as what's happening with Gmail. But it actually does stand to have potentially even a greater impact than the tabular change at Gmail. So if you're unaware, Yahoo made the decision to release user IDs after 12 months of inactivity. So that's 12 months of inactivity of logging into your ID, whether that's for Messenger or logging into your inbox or any of the other Yahoo related type of functionality. But it's after 12 months of inactivity. So, I mean, theoretically, if you're not seeing any activity in 12 months to your subscribers, you should be doing something anyway about looking at ways to re-engage those customers. But in the Yahoo environment, they're taking that kind of matter into their own hands, and they're defining inactives in their organization, and they will now become bounces, or that ID could potentially become someone else's. So just like in the Gmail example, it's time to start examining your Yahoo audience. Understand what their engagement metrics are. Do you see a contingency of subscribers that have no open or click activity in the last 10 months? If so, it might be time to start looking at ways to re-engage that audience. Talk about the different ways that you can get them re-engaged with the program internally to understand what it is that you want to drive out of them. Are you trying to get them, re-engaged with the program? I mean, those who are opening and clicking tend to be more valuable clients and customers, quite frankly. So, it's beneficial not just from, an inbox delivery standpoint, but, also just to the bottom line, of driving that engagement. But there are things that you can do within the content of the email or within the code of the email itself to address the potential concern with security around an ID being reassigned. So Yahoo is encouraging anybody that sends email, but especially e-commerce or anyone with account recovery functionality, they're being encouraged to include require recipient valid since header in the body or in the header of their email communication. So this allows you to define, again, the recipient's email address, their Yahoo address, and that they have been a valid recipient since, and you have to insert, your timestamp. It'll be today's timestamp, because if that email address has been reassigned to someone else, what nobody wants is for someone new to be able to get account information resets. So, for example, if a Facebook user wanted to reset their password and they have a Yahoo email address, Facebook would include that require recipient valid since header. And that new header would signal to Yahoo to check the age of the account before it's delivered to the recipient. And if that last confirmed date that is specified in the require recipient valid since header, if it's before the date of the new Yahoo user ownership, then that email wouldn't be delivered, and instead it would bounce back, and Facebook would then have to contact that user by other means to help address the password reset. So this is a really easy change that you can do, just from a coding standpoint to help alleviate some of the concern around what's happening with this Yahoo reassignment of IDs. All right, so the last one we're going to look at here really quickly is Outlook.com. So Microsoft had announced earlier this year that it would be shuttering Hotmail and that it was migrating its hundreds of millions of customers to Outlook.com. This was anticipated to be completed this summer, and it looks like it is. So, the changes, what does this really mean to us as marketers? Again, the biggest change here is going to be the UI in which consumers access their email accounts. So it's going to be a sleeker UI, have more robust functionality than Hotmail did, and it is also going to include filtering elements that allow users to create categories for filing their email. So, you have the ability to set up a newsletters filter, right? So if this is not sounding familiar to anybody, you weren't listening to the first half of the conversation. But they are going to allow for consumers to do self-filtering into categories of email communications from an access and organization standpoint. So very similar to what you're seeing with Gmail tabs. So those being affected are, going to be anyone with a live.com, hotmail.com, or msn.com email address. So anybody who has those, personal email addresses would be affected by this. They will now be, looking at Outlook.com for their email communications. But their email addresses aren't changing, so they're going to remain the same. So there's no worry there around bounces or, any concern with it becoming an @Outlook.com address. But, really, truly, again, the way they engage with email is going to change. So, again, looking at how live.com, hotmail.com, and msn.com email addresses are performing within your portfolio is good, just to start monitoring that to understand if there are any implications happening there. So, as we discussed, the changes that are happening aren't necessarily a bad thing, but there are some immediate things that you can do to make informed decisions and choices around handling these ISP changes, and that's true for now and as we move into the future, because changes are inevitably going to happen. You're going to want to truly understand what % of your universe represents each of these domains, and if they're not very significant, then you may not need to do much else. But if they represent a large % of your database, you're going to want to start truly understanding the performance metrics around each of those domains. So like I said, specifically, you're going to want to look at opens, clicks. If you have conversions as well, you're going to want to look at that. But I also do think that looking at the delay in, the delivery to open is also going to be critical, because it's quite possible that, you may see at the end of a promotion or after you do after you do some analysis on your programs that ultimately open rates may not be down. But the amount of time between the time you deliver the message and the time someone opens it could be increasing. And those types of things, could be very impactful, especially if you have, daily deals or your flash sales organization. Things that have very limited time opportunities could be affected there. So all of this, insight will provide you some indication and impact the changes they're having. And, next year, you just really want to start monitoring the situation. There have been so many calls and conversations I've had about how do I just tell my consumers to, get this information into the promotions tab, and my answer really is that the right answer? Is that what you really want to do? Because ultimately, if you're moving everything into the promotions tab or into the primary tab, it may or may not be, what's going to be most impactful for your business. So you might find that you're happy on the promotions tab. It's quite possible. I know some people laugh at that, but it is really quite possible that this isn't as bad as everybody would, some people would like to believe. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and continue to evaluate those changes. Don't make knee-jerk reaction decisions as we kind of move through this. So I mean, the bottom line is that, ISPs are always making changes, and they're going to continue to do so. And as an industry, we have become very agile in responding to them. And, quite honestly, that has been the status quo for us as email marketers for many years, and it's going to continue to be that way for years to come. So the best advice that I can give to all of you is to just take a deep breath, review the metrics, and don't freak out. Make an informed decision and really start understanding what it means to your business. So with that, I thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kara. Before we get into the Q&A portion of today, I want to make a quick plug. Blue Hornet is holding its 5th annual Lifecycle Messaging Conference this October 9th to the 11th. And for you participating today in today's webinar, it is we have 25% off registration code for you. It's Big 3WKT. To learn more about the conference, you can go to bluehornet.com/conference. We have some really great speakers that are going to be there: Mitch Joel, Sim Jenkins, Jade Bear. So it's a good conference to attend. It's great for all email marketers and digital marketers. So with that said, we will jump into our Q&A. We have a few questions that came in. We'll take a few questions verbally, and then we'll jump into our email chat, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, let's see. First question for you, Kara, is there a realistic expectation to tell subscribers to move their emails to the primary tab? It is just like with anything. There is an education curve that happens, and I think that some of the brands that kind of came out with this early on, it provided some educational value to the consumers, and it helped them understand how to technically do it. I think where there's a bit of a miss right now in a lot of this communication is why. We're not, as an industry, we're not providing any direction to the consumer as to why we should move email from the certain brand promotions from the promotions tab to the primary tab, except for the fact that you can see it when you log onto your primary tab. So. Yeah, I think that there was some early on value in providing that educational instruction to the consumer. But, at the end of the day, they're still going to make a decision on whether or not they want to put you there or not. And I think, that's where we have a big opportunity from a communication standpoint is to, provide them a reason that we should be there. And like I said, the reality is that we don't really know how this is going to impact email anyway from an email marketer's perspective. So I don't know. A bit of me thinks it was premature in starting to communicate that way. Let's see. Next question. Why do you think all of this is happening at once with Gmail and Yahoo and Hotmail/Outlook.com?
They're always trying to keep up with one another in providing the best inbox experience for, their subscribers. Their goal as inbox providers is to keep them in that environment as long as they can. And so, I think that a lot of that is, these are responses to common complaints that they hear from their subscribers and their consumers. People get a lot of email. I look at my inbox and I know I'm kind of an anomaly, but all of you on the phone probably are too. I have thousands of messages in my inbox, and I don't want it organized. I like it the way it is, but that's me. If you look at the consumer side, some of it can probably get a little overwhelming, and so I think that a lot of this, happens at the same time because they see one change happening and. All of the others have to keep up with, keeping in the environment as clean as possible for their consumers. I do think that's true of the Outlook.com and the Gmail change. I think the Yahoo change is odd. I think that's really more of a system issue for them, and that they want to reclaim IDs for people who aren't currently active in their platform, which, affects us a little differently, but nonetheless does.
Yeah. All right. Last question for our online Q&A is For Yahoo addresses, are the emails recoverable after 12 months, or are they gone forever?
So it is my understanding that after the ID has been released, it is free game. So somebody else can reclaim it and have it be their ID, or if you as a consumer choose to try and reclaim it yourself, as long as it's still available, you can have it back. But it's after 12 months of inactivity in the Yahoo environment, it becomes free game, and it can be anybody's email address after that.
Cool. Well, okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go into our email chat. And for those of you who are not familiar with email chat, it is a bi-weekly chat that we at Blue Hornet do every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And I talk about all kinds of things regarding email marketing, digital marketing trends, and we're going to continue our Q&A on our email chat. So I will put the email chat into the WebEx screen. If you have additional questions for Kara, you can go ahead and enter them into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. Or if you are a big tweeter like I am, you can add a column on your Hootsuite or TweetDeck with the hashtag email chat. So with that, thank you so much for joining the online portion of the webinar. Again, continue to look at your WebEx screen, and we will share the email chat window with you.